So as requested, this is the whipped shea butter that I used in my KP video, and it's ridiculously easy. So first you're gonna start off with, of course, shea butter. And just for reference, you do want to make sure that your shea butter is actually soft, because this is a prime indicator that it is actually shea butter. So no, you don't want to substitute this for like cocoa butter, because the texture would be completely different. Cocoa butter is much more solid and very hard. So to start off, I'm cutting my shea butter into smaller pieces because then the heat won't have to penetrate through a larger mass. And this part is actually optional, but I just find that it gives me a better result. So I'm going to use a double boiler method to just kind of melt my shea butter a little bit. It doesn't have to be completely. If you do decide to melt your shea butter, then I would recommend you do this step first. And no, I don't recommend microwaving, because we do want to maintain the quality or integrity of our ingredients and don't want to use radiation to alter them, because we want to get all of the benefits from its natural properties. By using the double boiler or using the heat from the steam to liquefy your oil rather than putting it on direct heat, as you can see here, I still have chunks in mine, so that is actually okay. So here I'm adding 1 tablespoon of rosehip seed oil, 1 tablespoon of almond oil, about a half a tablespoon of jojoba oil, and about 2 to 3 mils of sea buckthorn oil. Now, the main reason that I'm using rosehip seed oil is because it's very rich in beta carotene, which is a form of vitamin A. It's what's responsible for making sweet potatoes and carrots orange, which is also why I'm using less of it than I probably would normally, because I want the benefits, but I also don't want staining. And if I had more time, I would talk about why I used all of the oils that I did, but since I don't, I'm going to list that in the description box in case you're curious. But of course, guys, feel free to use whatever oils you'd like. You don't have to use this blend. This is what I'm catering to my skin. So if you have different needs, you can change it up. And if you guys have any questions about what oils maybe you could substitute, then just leave them in the comments. And the next step is kind of optional because this mixture isn't really hot. It's already kind of cooled down, but I'm going to pop this into the freezer for about 10 minutes until it forms a skin over top, which sounds gross, but basically it just means that the shea butter has kind of solidified. So that's why I said you don't necessarily have to melt if you don't want to. I just kind of like the way it marries all of the oils together. Then I'm going to take a hand mixer and I'm going to actually whip the shea butter by incorporating air into this mixture. And then I just kind of do that until I notice that the mixture kind of doubles in size, or I just really like the texture of it. So you don't really want to use like a blender or anything like that, because a blender would have a lid to it, or you could even use a stand mixer if you have a countertop version. So I whipped it for about 5 minutes roughly. And because the texture of this is more thick, it's not runny or something that you could easily pour into a container. I will sometimes just kind of put this into a plastic bag that I've draped over a tall, wide mouth cup. And I'll spoon the mixture in and then kind of turn it into a piping bag by cutting off the tip of one of the corners. And I'll use this method to transfer it to my glass jar. And then I'll also beat the bottom of the jar on either the table or the palm of my hand. Just remember, if your jar is glass, do be careful with this step because you don't want to break it. And this is just going to release some of the trapped air from your container so that you can fit more and just kind of fill up the space a little bit more effectively. This is a nice touch if you are gifting this to someone and you just want it to look a little bit more presentable. Now, like I mentioned, you can really play around with the measurements. So keep in mind, this is a product that I was using during the winter, so I really wanted it to be more thick and buttery. But if you want it to be thinner and more cream-like, then you would use less butter, more oil. If you guys want to see what that looks like, then just leave that in the comments. And if you enjoyed this, please do give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for new videos every week.